The dark truth behind the Federal Reserve: they told you it protects the economy. They told you it prevents crises. They told you it works for you. They elite. The Federal Reserve is not federal. It's not a reserve, and it doesn't work for the American people. It is the most powerful private institution in human history, a cartel of bankers that controls the flow of money across the entire planet. It was born in secrecy. It operates in shadows, and for over a century, it has orchestrated the greatest wealth transfer the world has ever seen. This is not a conspiracy theory. This is documented history. And if you don't understand how the Fed works, you cannot understand what's coming next. 1913. The night they stole America. Picture this. It's December 23, 1913. Congress is nearly empty. Most representatives have left Washington for Christmas. The few remaining lawmakers gather in a dim chamber. A bill is rushed to the floor. No debate. No public scrutiny. No transparency. By morning, America's financial sovereignty is gone. The Federal Reserve Act passes in the dead of night. President Woodrow Wilson signs it into law. Later, he will express deep regret. "I am a most unhappy man. I have unwittingly ruined my country." He understood too late. The power to create money, the most fundamental power in any nation, was handed to a private banking cartel. Not elected, not accountable, not constitutional. The pattern is always the same. When power consolidates in secret, the people lose. But how did this happen? What wanted it, and why does it still exist today? Jekyll Island, the secret meeting that changed everything, November 1910. A private train departs Hoboken, New Jersey, under cover of darkness. On board, 6 men. They use only first names, no last names, no titles. Total secrecy. Their destination, Jekyll Island, Georgia, private resort owned by America's wealthiest elite. For 9 days, these men draft a plan. A plan to create a central bank, a plan to control the money supply, a plan to ensure that banks, not governments, not people, decide the fate of nations. Who were they? Nelson Aldrich, Senator, father-in-law to John D. Rockefeller, Jr., Frank Vanderlip, President of National City Bank. Now, Citibank, Henry Davison, senior partner at J.P. Morgan & Co. Charles Norton, President of First National Bank of New York. Benjamin Strong, head of J.P. Morgan's Bankers Trust. Paul Warburg, partner at Kuhn, Loeb & Co., representing the Rothschild banking interests. These were not public servants. These were bankers, the richest, most powerful bankers in the world, and they were designing the future. Nobody saw it coming. The American public had no idea. Congress had no idea. Even most bankers had no idea. By the time the Federal Reserve Act was passed 3 years later, the plan was already set in stone. The lie. It's a government institution. Here's what they want you to believe. The Federal Reserve is a government agency that stabilizes the economy, prevents inflation, and protects the American people from financial crises. Here's the truth. The Federal Reserve is a private corporation owned by member banks. It is not part of the U.S. government. It is not subject to congressional audits. It answers to no one. The 12 regional Federal Reserve banks are owned by private member banks: J.P. Morgan Chase, Bank of America, Citigroup, Goldman Sachs, and others. These banks elect 6 of the 9 directors of each regional Fed bank. The president appoints the board of governors, but once in place, they operate independently. The Fed creates money out of thin air. It loans that money to the government at interest. The government then taxes you to pay back that interest. Forever. Think about that. Every dollar in your wallet was created as debt. The more money the Fed creates, the more debt the nation accumulates. Temore. Demo control. This time, it will be worse, because the system was never designed to last. It was designed to transfer wealth, and it's working exactly as intended. The boom-bust cycle, engineered chaos since the creation of the Federal Reserve in 19... America has experienced the Great Depression, 1929, the stagflation crisis, 1970s, the savings and loan crisis, 1980s, the dot-com bubble, 2000, The housing crash 2000, the COVID money printing frenzy 2020, every single one of these crises occurred under Federal Reserve management. This is not coincidence. TC's design. Here's how it works. Step 1. The Fed lowers interest rates. Cheap money floods the economy. Businesses borrow. Consumers borrow. Asset prices soar. Everyone feels rich. Step 2. The bubble grows. Speculation increases. Debt pillars up. Risk is ignored. The economy overheats. Step 3. The Fed raises interest rates. Money becomes expensive. Borrowers can't pay. Businesses collapse. Markets crash. Step 4. The Fed steps in. As the savior, they lower rates again. They print money. They buy assets. They consolidate control. The pattern is always the same. Boom, bust, bailout. Repeat, and every cycle, the rich get richer, the middle class gets poorer, and the Fed gains more power. 2008. The moment the mask slipped. Imagine waking up one morning in September 2008. Lehman Brothers collapses. Aig is hours from bankruptcy. The global financial system is on the brink of total meltdown. Panic spreads. Markets crash. Retirement accounts evaporate overnight. And then, the Federal Reserve steps in, not with accountability, not with justice, but with trillions of dollars printed out of thin air. They call it quantitative easing, a fancy term for legalized counterfeiting. The Fed pumped $4.5 trillion into the financial system between 2008 and 2014. Who got that money? Not you. Not Main Street. Not the homeowners who lost everything. The money went to banks. The same banks that caused the crisis. J.P. Morgan, Goldman Sachs, Bank of America, Citigroup. They got bailouts. You got austerity. Nobody saw it coming, except they did. Some people saw it. They warned Congress. They warned the public. They were ignored. And the people who caused the crash, they got bonuses. The Cantillon effect. Why are you getting poorer? Here's the secret they don't teach in school. When the Fed prints money, it doesn't reach everyone equally. The newly created money goes to banks first, then to corporations, then to Wall Street, and finally maybe it trickles down to you. By the time you see it, prices have already risen. Your wages stay the same, but rent, groceries, healthcare, and education cost more. This is called the Cantillon effect, named after 18th century economist Richard Cantillon. The closer you are to the money printer, the richer you become. The farther away, the poorer. The Fed doesn't create prosperity. It creates inequality. Between 2008 and 2020, the wealth of America's billionaires increased by over $1 trillion. The median household income barely moved. Coincidence? No. Design. History doesn't repeat, but it rhymes. The Weimar Republic. Ancient Rome. Every empire that debased its currency collapsed. Every time. The elites saw it coming. And every time, tape, the digital dollar total control. Now imagine this. You wake up tomorrow, your cash is gone. Not stolen, obsolete. The Federal Reserve launches a central bank digital currency, CBDC, a digital dollar, programmable money. Every transaction you make is tracked, every purchase recorded, every cent monitored. Don't like government policy. They freeze your account. Protest. Your money disappears. Think this is paranoia? It's already happening. China has rolled out the digital yuan. The European Union is testing the digital euro. The Federal Reserve has openly discussed a digital dollar. They call it innovation. Convenience, security. But here's what it really is. Absolute control. With a CBDC, the Fed can program expiration dates on money, forcing you to spend, block purchases they disapprove of, charge negative interest rates, taxing your savings, track every dollar you earn, spend, or save. Cash is freedom. Digital currency is slavery, and the Fed is pushing toward it. Fast. The debt trap. $36 trillion and counting. Picture the United States today. $36 trillion in national debt. That's $36 trillion. Every man, woman, and child in America owes over $100,000 in government debt. But here's the kicker. That debt can never be repaid. It was never meant to be. The system is designed to create perpetual debt. The Fed loans money to the Treasury. The Treasury issues bonds. The Fed buys those bonds with money it created from nothing. The government pays interest forever. Who profits? The banks that own the Fed. And what happens when the debt becomes unsustainable? This time, it will be worse. Because the world is losing faith in the dollar. Russia is dumping U.S. treasuries. China is stockpiling gold. The BRICS nations are building alternative payment systems. When the dollar collapses, the Fed's power collapses. But so does the global economy. And the people in charge. They're already positioned for what comes next. The Rockefeller connection. Old money. New power. Let's go back to Jekyll Island. Nelson Aldrich, father-in-law to John D. Rockefeller. Jr. was the driving force behind the Federal Reserve Act. The Rockefellers understood something fundamental. Control the money, control the world. John D. Rockefeller Sr. built Standard Oil into the most powerful monopoly in American history. By 1900, he controlled 90% of U.S. oil production. But oil wasn't enough. The Rockefellers wanted financial control. They funded the creation of the Federal Reserve. They established Chase Manhattan Bank, now J.P. Morgan Chase. They financed the Council on Foreign Relations, the Trilateral Commission, and the Bilderberg Group. Every major geopolitical decision of the 20th century passed through Rockefeller-controlled institutions. The pattern is always the same. Power doesn't disappear. It consolidates, it hides, it adapts. Today, the Rockefellers don't need to control oil. They control central banks. They control global policy organizations. They control the narrative. And most people have no idea. The modern cartel, BlackRock, Vanguard, and the Fed fast forward to today. The Federal Reserve still operates in secrecy, but now it has new partners. BlackRock manages over $10 trillion in assets. Vanguard controls another $8 trillion. Together, they own massive stakes in nearly every major corporation on Earth. Microsoft, Exxon, Pfizer, Coca-Cola, McDonald's. They are the largest shareholders in the banks that own the Federal Reserve. Let that sink in. In 2020, during the COVID crisis, the Fed hired BlackRock to manage its bond-buying programs, a private asset manager running Federal Reserve operations. Conflict of interest. Corruption. Collusion. Call it what you want. The result is the same. Total control. BlackRock's CEO, Larry Fink, now sits on advisory boards for governments around the world. He dictates policy. He shapes regulations. He decides which industries survive, which die, and he answers to no one. Nobody saw it coming, except it's been happening for decades. Slowly, quietly, methodically. The coming crisis. 2025 to 2030 now. Picture this. The dollar is losing its dominance. Inflation is accelerating. Debt is spiraling. The Fed is trapped. If they raise rates, the economy crashes. If they keep rates low, inflation explodes. There is no good option. Only bad and worse. Between 2020 and 2023, the Fed printed more money than in the previous 100 years combined. The consequences are only beginning. History shows what happens next. Weimar Germany, 1923. Hyperinflation destroyed the currency. A loaf of bread costs billions of marks. Zimbabwe, 2008. Hyperinflation reached 89.7 sextillion%. The currency became worthless. Venezuela, 2016 present. Money printing destroyed the economy. People eat from garbage cans. This time, It will be worse, because when the dollar collapses, it won't just destroy America. It will destroy the global economy. The endgame. Who wins? So what happens next? The Fed will do what it always does. Protect the banks. Protect the elites. Protect itself. They will introduce a CBDC. They will push for a global financial reset. They will consolidate control. And by the time most people realize what's happening, it will be too late. The middle class will be wiped out. Savings will evaporate. Assets will be seized. But the billionaires, they'll be fine. They always are. History doesn't repeat, but it rhymes. Every time a currency collapses, wealth doesn't disappear. It transfers from the many to the few, from the poor to the rich, from you to them. Conclusion. The question nobody wants to ask the Federal Reserve is not your protector. It's your predator. It was created in secret. It operates without oversight. It profits from your debt. It thrives on your ignorance. And the longer it exists, the worse things will get. So here's the uncomfortable truth. The system isn't broken. It's working exactly as designed. The question is, what are you going to do about it?